A random stream time. I'm gonna be doing more of these just while I'm while I'm searching for work and just um help keep my sanity. Hey man, good to see you. I want to be a developer. Um, welcome. I'm just um fired up my machine, decided I wanted to stream. So let's toggle over to a dark theme and let's see where we are. This is one that I'm definitely not prepared for, so you guys will get to see a little bit of the behind the scenes stuff I do before streams. Yeah, don't need to update those. You finished work 30 minutes ago. You know, I was thinking we're a bit different. You do Angular and I do React and Vue. We have our differences, but at the end of the day, we're the same, right? We're not like those greasy Java developers. Brother, shots fired, shots fired. Oh, um, you gotta love your Java developers too, man. Um, you need your back end to work so that your front end works. Uh, and I just realized I need to check on everything. I just fired stuff up and I was like, see what happens. Usually I'm a little bit more prepared than this. Um, Not much, but a little bit. We're looking good there. Let me make sure CloudBot is working. CloudBot is working. I'm just making sure content live. Hey, we're currently live. Good. Just like to make sure that everything's up, looks good. We're good to go. Um, so I'm putting together a workshop on the resource stuff for Angular also. Just fired that off to Brooke. Totally agree. It was a good joke. Um, but anyway, we're live. Hopefully, it's a more friendly time to like. This is why I stream around this time on Sunday. It's because there are a lot of people that watch in the European and like Middle Eastern and African time zones, um, and a little bit in Asia. This time's a little bit crazy for like people in Australia, but my evening streams are designed to pick up, people in those time zones in like the US and Central and South America. But usually whenever I stream like Central and South America and the US, and I guess I need to include Canada too, right? Like so North North Central and South America are usually pretty friendly times when I stream. But anyway, let's make sure everything looks good. We are looking good there. Hey, we just got some people to join on YouTube, so that means things are going well. Um, let's see. Oh, I had to go pick up my daughter from school today. She's not feeling well. I did that just before here. Went and grabbed some breakfast. Um, yeah, let's see. That looks good. Uh, this branch is wrong. I almost jumped right into it. I didn't get my branch set up. So get my branching set up. Um, I still insert a social construct, same as Earth being round. It is flat. That is my absolute favorite conspiracy theory, man. It ranks pretty high up there with conspiracy theories, but flat Earth is one of the ones that just cracks me up. Um, I don't know. Like, have you ever seen water sticking to the outside of a ball? Sure, dip it in water. Does it come out wet? Yeah, it sticks to the outside of the ball. Good, congratulations, you've got water sticking to the outside of a ball. How deep do you think the water is on the Earth? Just silly stuff like that, um, compared to the size of the Earth. But anyway, I need to just let it be. Um, you're gonna troll me good with that one, and you're gonna get me in trouble. Um, but one of my favorite pastimes is to go watch flat Earth channels. Um, so recently, um, they invited a whole bunch of famous flat earthers down to Antarctica, because for the longest time, everybody said that you can't go to Antarctica and whatever. They invited all of these flat earthers to Antarctica, um, and the whole point of the invitation was to talk about a 24-hour sun, right? Because a 24-hour sun is not easy to do on the flat Earth models that they have. Um, and so they invited them, and now they're tearing apart the videos and right, like this can't be true and whatever. But famous flat earthers are there in the shots and in the frames, and it's good times. One of my absolute favorite conspiracies. Anyway, thanks for sniping me with that one, man. Like one of the most controversial ones you can snipe me with. Um, time zones, I will. There are benefits to time zones, right? Because you know, say we centralized, and everybody moved to like GMT, right? Um, so what time would it be GMT wise right now for me? I don't even know. Nope, I need to update my browser. It's got to be pretty close to like the time in Italy, right? Is Italy pretty close to GMT? Like Italy, parts of France, Spain, Portugal. Like if I think Portugal might be too far west. Um, CET, the Central European. Yeah. Um, but like if say we all standardized on GMT, right? Current time GMT. So it's 5:40 p.m. GMT. It's 10:40 a.m. for me. So say we all standardized on GMT. Um, it would be really good for like Europe and areas that are really close around where GMT is, right? For me, or even like Australia, well, Australia might be okay. No, but like the further you get away from that GMT line, the weirder it would be. Um, and you know what? I actually knew. So I'm GMT -7. That's the time zone I'm in. I know that because I pick it all over the place, right? I should have known. Um, I just didn't think about it until I saw this question about is Chicago GMT -5 or -6? It's -5. Um, but I am GMT -7, so that means I'm 7 hours off from GMT. That means like say I wake up at 7 a.m. every morning. Um, that turns into 2 p.m., right? So I would be waking up at 2 p.m. every day, um, which is a bit weird, right? And that's where I think time zones really help because say you're used to waking up at 7 a.m. every day, um, and you travel to another time zone. Well, the sun would be coming up at different times. And so I think it would be more confusing to have to learn, say you guys, you came from CET time, right? And you came to Mountain Time in Utah. Um, you'd have to remember that for the winter time, the sun comes up around 1 p.m. or 2 p.m. Um, but in the summer, it can come up as early as like 11 a.m., right? Um, and but where you live, right, the sun is coming up at 5 a.m. or 4 a.m., whatever, whatever your time zone is, right? I think that would be way more confusing, um, and it would lead to like globally communicating times when you want to meet would become easier, right? Because I would no longer say, "Hey, I'm going to stream on Sunday at 10:30 a.m. Mountain." I could just say, "Hey, I'm going to stream on Sunday at 5:30," right? And 5:30 p.m. and everybody would know, "Oh yeah, 5:30 p.m. we tune in," right? So that part would be easier, but the more difficult part would be the actual day to day of our lives, like knowing when work starts when you move to different time zones, knowing when people typically wake up, right? And people would talk about different times of the day differently. Um, so, to somebody closer to GMT, the morning would still be typical morning hours that we typically talk about. But for me, the morning would be, 1 p.m. or 2 p.m. And, you know, uh, oh man, I stayed up so late. I was up until, um, like, what do we say? I don't know. Like, I was up until 4 a.m., right? That becomes very, very confusing to people whose morning starts at 4 a.m. or who maybe their bedtime starts at 4 a.m. or, right? It just, um, yeah. I I spent a bunch of time thinking about this. If you can't tell, I want to be a developer, um, because there are benefits, and there would be immediate benefits to me, right? Communicating globally what time I'm doing things. Um, there are also downsides, and I think the downsides might outweigh all the upsides. Let's check for any upgrades today, updates today. They're all Storybook and Cypress. We'll worry about those later. Um, so we were writing tests last night, and I want to get back into those tests. Um, so let's take a look at those tests. This is weird. Like I don't know why this happens. Um, I think the reason that what we're seeing happens has more to do with the fact that we aren't connected to a server at all. Um, but let's get back into the code. Um, and I don't know how long I'm going to be streaming this morning. It might be an hour, it might be 2 hours. Um, like I've got a list of things I need to get done, but I also just want to take a break right now. So, all right, we are. So these are the tests that we wrote specifically for the game one feature yesterday. And we found a bug yesterday writing these tests where if the error in the grid wasn't set before you filled out the grid, um, then the game one didn't work. So we fixed that bug and made it so that the gain one is properly calculated. Um, so let's go ahead and close everything down. So we wrote for the game one. Um, we probably need to do some stuff for the computed that we've added to the grid. So let's go ahead and add a new file, TypeScript file. Um, and this one, we will call it our grid.computed .feature.ts. Have you guys can't name it the same thing as a file that's already there? You're absolutely right. I can't. But you should have allowed me to do something else. Let's try again. Grid.computed .feature .spec.ts. So there we go. But I was just gonna say, have you guys seen the new proposal from the Angular style guide to instead of using, well, so all Angular stuff should be .ng.ts, and they're recommending that we no longer use component or service or things like that. Curious if you guys have seen that yet. Um, my phone is going crazy. What is my phone doing? I actually have to pay attention to my phone, so it might beep a little bit and oh, sweet. Um, so back in August, we had a pretty big hailstorm come through. Um, and that hailstorm wound up damaging our roof. Um, we got the roof replaced. We got like our gutters replaced. We've got damage to our windows that's being worked on and just stuff like that. It was pretty significant hailstorm. Those text messages were my insurance company telling me, "Hey, we just cut some more checks." Um, it's crazy how expensive, like replacing a roof, replacing gutters, working on windows. I may have to replace a window. It's just crazy how expensive all that stuff is now. Um, so that's my insurance company telling me, hey, we just sent you a check. Watch for it in the mail. Um, it should. I want it to create an instance. Um, so our computed has a couple of stuff in it. We've got the selected field. Um, and selected has a couple of states. Um, selected can have something that is selected. Um, and if it does, then we return a row, whatever. If it doesn't, we expect it to return no cell selected. Um, so let's write a test for selected, right? Uh, Scribe selected. Um, there we go. So with selected, um, see, I don't like that it's trying. This is a bad test. Like we shouldn't be mocking the selected on our store. Instead, um, it wants a grid state. Um, so let's create a grid state, right? So const, we want our test service, and we're gonna say that our test service is going to be a signal store, right? Um, and our signal store is going to have with grid, um, and then we're also going to use with grid computed, right? Um, so let's import with grid. So there we go. Now we've got a signal store that we can inject. The next thing that we do, and let me close this to the side, is um, we want create service. And this is going to use spectator. So we're going to create service factory, and we're going to use test service here. And we're going to grab service factory from spectator. And what that's going to do is it's going to use the test service that we set up here, and it's going to create that for us. So now we're in a good place. Um, because now we can inject stuff, right? And actually these need to be outside of this inner describe, but we want to keep them inside of this one because we want these to be cleaned up when our service is cleaned up, right? So here, um, so we can grab our service, service dot, oh, it's a spectator, right? I always make this, so now we can say spectator dot service, and here we can see columns. There's more on this, right? So if I go take a look at with grid, um, with grid, update cell value as error, set grid values, set cell value. Um, take a look at initial state here. Um, so it has selected on it, but the feature, the grid feature, doesn't have a way to update selected. So we're going to create again. What we're going to do is we're going to say um, we're going to say function, and we're going to say with update selected, right? And here we're just going to return signal store feature. And we want right away, we want to type, and our type is going to be, yeah, we can actually, we can say that we want our store to be type grid state. Boom. And now we need to import grid state. And I don't think it's store, I think it's state. So now we've got that. And then we can just add our with methods. And this is going to give us the ability to add stuff here. So here we also need the generic, and here we can just say set selected. Um, and we can just say state dot selected. Or no, we want to patch state. Patch state state, and here we just want selected, and that's what we're going to pass in, right? I mean, it needs to be underscore selected. So here we can say selected. So there we go. So now we've patched our state with selected. Let's bring in that. And that's going to allow us to do some stuff. So selected has an any type, but selected on our grid feature let's keep that one open, and let's also keep the computed. If we look here, selected is an object with row, column, and region or undefined, right? So we can do the same here. We can say, selected has to be an object with row, column, number, or undefined, right? That's going to work there. And so we set that, it should return the selected cell. So we can say const selected cell equals, and let's do something besides one. Let's do like row 4, column 5. So if we think about it, we're 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So we're in the middle, and then 5 is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we're in the very middle square, which winds up being 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's the 5th region. So now we can create our service, and then we can say, hey, spectator dot service dot set selected to our selected cell. Oh, I didn't add this to here. So we can say with update selected. Boom. There we go. I also think that like this doesn't have to be here. It doesn't have to be part of that. So const selected, that doesn't make sense. Now we can say, yeah. So there's our test, right? So we set it to row 5, column 5, region 5 here, and then we just expect to get that same value back. So if we go here and we run this, that's our components test. Everything should run, and we should get a passing test. So there we go. So it should return the selected cell. If I change any of these to be something that we don't expect, then I should get, an error back in the test. I always like to make sure that I add an not passing case to my test. Because if it doesn't fail, that means my test doesn't do anything proper, right? And so we expected 0, but we got 5. Perfect. That's what we expected. So that one failed. Um, so the last thing is it should return no cell selected when no cell is selected. That's absolutely true. Um, let's make sure we just put that in quotes. Just, well, no, doesn't matter. Um, so that matches. What's going on here? I've got an extra. Here we go. It was giving me an extra. Oh no, I needed that one, right? I need that one. And that works. There we go. Um, right. It's got notification, other stuff going on. Trying to be responsive to just like um, places that I've applied to and things like that. Um, if we look, that test passed. So now we've tested our selected stuff. We've pinned that in place, and that's what we're working on right now. Is pinning tests. So when we go to xState, we can verify the correctness of what xState does. So next to focus, um, so we need some code that will allow us to update next to focus. Um, so one thing we can do is let's turn this into a type right here. Um, introduce type alias. And we'll call this selected cell. Um, and so the other thing we can do is set next to focus. And here, next to focus will also be a selected cell. Boom. And so then we can just patch our state with next to focus. And this is allowing us to, like, we don't have to exercise the logic for next to focus. We can just say, hey, set next to focus to be this, right? And the nice thing about this is now we can come up here and we can describe next to focus. And, our tests are going to be very, very similar to the tests above, because what we've done is we've isolated our feature from the logic, right? So we don't have to worry about the logic. We can just specify, hey, this is our oh, and then so next to focus doesn't actually have the region on it. It's just the row and column. But we'll fix that, right? Um, so here we can say, hey, Should return the next cell to focus. Absolutely. So when we set up our test, right, we get our next to focus, and there we go. Um, and here, let's do two row two, column four, region two, right? And these numbers don't matter really. They just need to be numbers that we can test. And so here we want row and column. Um, and right, it was already giving us what we expected. Um, so this test is already passing. I I was worried we were going to have to do something special, but because of the way the signal store works, it just ignores stuff that we add that it doesn't need or want. So we're in a good place there. So then the last thing is it should return, and if we look, no cell to focus, right? It should return no cell to focus when there isn't a cell to focus. Um, and so we can write this test also, right? Const our spectator, and then we can just expect um, that. And really, we don't even need this. We should be testing instead of the actual tuple. We should be testing no cell selected, right? And import that. And here we should be importing no cell to focus and testing that. Uh, right? The fact that we know that it's all negative ones doesn't matter. Um, we should be testing this because that way our test is less brittle. Because if we change the values in no cell selected, then our tests don't break. Um, and you'll see that after making that change, all of our stuff passed. Great. And so our computed feature is almost done. The rotated grid. Um, so rotated grid returns the grid rotated so that our columns become our rows become columns. Um, this is a this one is a tricky one to test. How many places is rotated grid used? Like, I think it's only used here. So it's used in the grid feature, computed feature, computed feature. We're using it. Where is this? This is all coverage stuff. So I think we're actually leaking some of our internal. I think we can actually make this private to the store. It doesn't need to be a public value. Um, and this makes our test a lot easier. Um, so we need a couple of things to be able to do this. So we need rows, columns, and regions. What we can do is we can describe, um, and instead of doing regions here, we can do grid parts, right? And the grid parts are going to be the rows, the columns, and the regions. So it should return the rows. Yep. Um, so what we need is a way to fill out our grid. Um, and we want to be able to fill out our grid in such a way that we can check it. Um, so what I want to do is let's just create a const grid equals, and we're going to create our grid like this. So it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then 1, 2, 3, right? So we're going to do this 9 times. So we've got 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So this is our grid, right? It's not a valid grid, but it is the grid that we want. And what is this? Oh, well, yeah, of course it's duplicated. I did it on purpose. And really, we could do I'm an array dot from, but then I can't use the as const. So I don't care as much, right? The next thing we want to do is we want to create a function, and this function is fill grid. Um, yeah, and yep, we're going to use a spectator service, and it should pick up test service. Instance type of test service. And here we want type of, boom. And this is saying set grid values. Let's go take a look at where are my set grid values. So here we can just say cell value, boom, boom, pull that in. And now all it's complaining about is fill grid is defined but never used, right? That's good. So right now we're just going to use fill grid with that grid. We aren't really going to change it. So we can just say, hey, fill the grid. Um, and then what we want, well, if we save this, we're going to see that we're way off. Um, wait, why did that pass? It didn't pass. It was still compiling stuff. So you'll see that, hey, we got a whole bunch of stuff that we didn't expect. So column 3, region 7, row 8, we expect a value of 4, right? We just said, hey, we expected an empty array. And so we're way off here. So how do we create like the cell value, whatever that we expect, right? Um, and so the next thing we can do is we can create a function. And we can say create expected cell values. And we're going to take in an array of cell values. So cell values, and this is going to be a cell value array. And this is going to return. So if we look, our rows is actually a cell state, right? So we want here a cell state of that, right? And we need to bring in cell state. And really here, we don't, so we're gonna map each row and row index. And then we're going, for each row, we're gonna map each value and column index. And then here, we don't need this. What we can do is we can just do a create cell state with that. And so the create cell state takes in a row, column, region, value. So it's an object. So here we can say it's row and row index, and then column and column index. And then the last thing we need is the region. And for right now, we're just going to put in a 1. And that's going to fail. But that's okay, right? We'll fix that up here in a second. So const expected rows, and we expect our rows to match the grid exactly. So we aren't going to make any changes there. And then we expect this to equal expected rows. And Actually, we don't even need to run this math, but it's probably a good thing to get right. Um, so if we run this, we're still going to get an issue. So when we look at this, notice that our regions are wrong, right? Um, so we need to figure out our regions. Um, and there's some math to do the regions. Um, let's see. Trying to decide if I want to look it up or just figure it out, right? So our region is based on the row and the column. Um, so if we do row index minus row index percent 3 plus column index percent 3, does that work? It does. That's right. Um, so how does this work, right? Let's go take a look at, um, where's my Excalibur right there. So let's take a look at this, right? Let's go ahead and draw in a few lines. So we've got this, and then this one, and then this one, and this one, and then this one, and this one. And then if we rotate this, uh-oh, just a second. I don't even know what that was. Hey, Michael, welcome to the stream, man. Um, but anyway, I'm probably noticing you way late. Um, this is going to be faster than what I was doing before. Oops. So if we look at this as our grid, right? Our math is um, our row index minus the row index percent 3 plus the column index percent 3, right? So basically the remainder. Um, does that work? I don't think that works. I thought, like, I didn't do the math, um, but I'm not sure that that works. Check what a day stream. About to head to hopefully you have something good for lunch. Um, I just barely ate breakfast. So, um, so this doesn't work. Um, Yeah, this does not work at all. Um, I think this needs to be divided by 3 and plus column index divided by 3. Does that work? So if we go figure this out, right? So here, row index 0 divided by 3 is 0. Row index 1 divided by 3 is 0. Row index 2 divided by 3 is 0. 3, this is all 1, and this is all 2. So 0, 1, 2. And then we go column index divided by 0. So this should all be 0, right? Because these all are 0. This should be 1. This should be 2. This will be 1, 2, 3. Not right. Not right. Because we want this to be 2, or we want this to be 3, or yeah, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Those are our regions. Um, we've got the 0, 1, 2 down, right? Because these are all 0, but this right here needs to be a 3. We're getting 1 and 2 here, but this needs to start at 2 and then 3 and then 4. How would we do that? I did the math for it. Let's go take a look at the math. Um, instead, right? So let's just do region. Um, so this is going backwards from it. I should probably make that a weak set. It's going to be in the grid. It's going to be in the grid feature, and it's going to be where we create the initial state. Um, I know I have a function called like create grid or something like that. Yeah, create grid state. Calc grid region. Oh, and I do have, this is just exported. We take the column divided by 3. And then we take the row, which is the row minus the row percent 3. And that becomes our grid plus our row. Oh, that makes sense. That's the piece I was missing. Um, so like for rows 0 through 2, this becomes 0 and then 1 minus 1 and then 2 minus 2, right? And then through 3 through 5, this becomes 3. And then 4 minus 1 is 3. 5 minus 1 is 3. This is that was the piece I was missing. But that's easy. We can, instead of doing this, we can just bring in calc grid region and give it column index and row index. Our test should pass. So there we go. Now our tests all pass. What is going here? Trying to override rows, columns, and regions. So something I did here is making a mess. On line 95, it's saying I'm trying to override something. I comment this out and I just make my expected rows back into this. Does that? I mean, it's going to fail, but do I get this error that I'm trying to override members? Rows, columns, and region. Next to focus, rotated. Like it's saying that I'm trying to override something, but I'm definitely not. So line 27, 27, 35. I don't typically do it this way. I do it service, right? We're getting failures again, but now our failures have to do with us getting the wrong values, but I am still getting this error here. Have I been getting it the whole time? Yeah, it looks like I have. Um, so it doesn't look like this is my problem. Um, it might be my create service factory. Because I don't like that it's saying that I'm trying to override. What am I doing wrong here? Let's go take a look at like this one. And it's doing the same thing. Create service. On line 95. And if we go up, it's also saying on 95, trying to override next to focus. And then on line 54, which is again where we call create service. And then I'll bet it says 54 again. It does. And then 46 is again there. So it's on all of them where we're trying to use the spectator create service factory. Create service factory, service, test state, signal store. We just called it test service, but the only difference here with update selected, we expect that that's selected and next to focus. Let's just, like, I don't know why it thinks I'm trying to override. Because it's working, but it is saying, hey, you cannot override this. I'm curious, let's try taking spectator out of the mix and see if potentially spectator's the issue. So we could, instead of doing this, we could just say, hey, it's our service or our store equals new test service, right? And then here we can pass our store and then store. And now it's going to complain because our fill grid expects this, but we can just say, no, this is actually our store. And it is an instance type. So we can say store, an instance type. We don't need spectator. And then here we can just say store. And so now if we run it, um, where is this one saying we're trying to override the store now? So it's saying an injector type. So 93 and 21. No, it's still saying that we're trying to override it. Why would it think we're trying to override it? I'm not even grabbing it from the like this right here is we're not overriding anything here. We're not even using the test bed at this point. So again, we're getting this, we can't override rows, columns, and regions. Would it think we're trying to override? Does it do the same thing for game one? Like if I add a test comment here, um, is this just something I missed from last time? There's the grid computed, grid computed, grid computed, grid computed. It's not running the test comment one. I'm getting the same amount. Um, let's take off the watch. And that way it should run everything. Very 7 out of 34 passed. Grid computed, grid computed, grid computed, grid computed, grid computed. So this is the game one. Game one doesn't have the issue that my grid computed does. Um, just frustrating. What's the difference? The type state of grid state. Um, we've got methods on it. The only difference is that I had this after the one that I was testing. But no, we're still getting the override. Well, it's time to do some test bisection, right? To see what could possibly cause this. Let's take that out and let's run with the simplest test. One test, nothing being set. And we'll see 3425. Yes. So it is still, this specific test is still failing. The game one doesn't have the issue. Oh, maybe it does. No, this is computed stuff again. But I'm not trying to override selected next to focus. Is it really potentially that let's just try renaming this to test state. Um, if I've got a name collision, maybe. No. try taking this out entirely and instead go with state equals new test 8. You know what, let's go one step further. Let's clear this. So I've got no scroll back. So now if I run it, we should only see, and it may be the fact that I'm using spectator, which uses testbed underneath, and I might, when I call that create, it might be trying to redeclare stuff. I probably don't need spectator, let's be honest. Oh, look at that. We're still getting it. On line 33, on line 33. Yeah, I'm not sure. Let's just do like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Just to rule out name collisions. Right? It's unlikely that I named anything that. Um, should have also cleared everything, but I saw the error, right? Um, yeah, we're still getting that error. So it's not name collisions that's causing the issue. Um, it also happens to probably not be spectator. So what could it be? With update selected, I don't need that right now. Let's break out of this, clear the terminal again, and run my tests again, and we'll see if we get that error. I don't know why it thinks I'm trying to redeclare things like rows. No, it still thinks I'm trying to redeclare, trying to override rows, columns, and regions. Why would it think that? And it's specifically when I'm creating the service. Like I'm doing the exact same thing. That's the crazy thing, right? Here's the test state, here's the service. I create the service. For some reason with computed, thinks I'm trying to override. Why would it think I'm trying to override rows here? And we've checked to make sure that we're not colliding with like names. Returning a signal store feature. Doesn't exist. Like I don't. Hmm. One other thing we could do is we could add some hooks to it. So here we could just say, hey, with hooks, and then grab our state, which we actually aren't going to use. But we could say um, destroy. So on there isn't on init. So here we could probably say on there and on destroy. Let's look at the NGRX. Life cycle hooks. There is, oh, there's no function. It just passes. Okay. On destroy. And we can just say console.log with update selected, destroyed. And we would expect to see that in our tests here. Oh, now we've got a failing test. Why do I have a failing test? Never mind. I must have made a mistake someplace else. Um, Signal store members cannot be overridden. Oh, did I remove that? Um, no, with update selected is there. So we aren't being destroyed, right? On init. So let's see if we get the initialized message in our. Fascinating. So I'm not getting it. Um, I'm curious. What if we move this stuff to the top? Because that's the only other difference. Um, is I don't know why we would have this issue going on. Um, where it thinks I'm trying to override something that I'm not. I'm just trying to use a state that I put together. yeah, it still thinks we're trying to override it on line 59, which is there. Let's focus on just this test. Actually, what we can do is uh, grid.computed.feature. So let's terminate this. Let's clear. Let's run it with a watch, and there's some options that we can use. There's a way to filter it down to the name of the file. Um, the question mark. Thank you. Um, like it's not giving the ability to filter it or wonder if so it's doing jest, pass with no tests, true, and then watch. I wonder if the standalone stuff is causing problems for me. Um, because usually you can tell it, hey, I want to filter it down to just run certain tests. Oh, there's my initializer right there. That one finally ran. So it's telling me I'm trying to override a whole bunch of stuff. Rows, columns, and regions, and then oh wait, why does it think I'm trying to override rows, columns, and regions? Oh, 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 oh. I know what my problem is. If I look at the grid feature already includes with grid computed. Dang it. Uh, oh, I spent so much time trying to debug this. Could just do this instead. Because we want to make sure that we're focused only on the grid computed. Um, the grid feature we can take a look at by itself, but we want to be focused on the grid computed. So now if I run this and we clear it, it's not going to tell me that I'm trying to override anymore because I wasn't trying to import grid computed or with grid computed twice. Ah, but we definitely want our stuff to be isolated. Um, so yeah, we can see now we aren't getting, hey, you're trying to override features and you can't do that. Now it's just telling us, hey, you're setting pencil marks. Great. So now I should be able to uncomment all the other tests and we should be good to go. We're finishing up tests and then we'll finish up the regions and the rows. And once we get that figured out, we'll go ahead and probably call it for the day. Because I need to get back to what I was working on before. This is test state. And the reason I was so confused, um, heard something. What am I hearing? Interesting. I don't know where that sound is coming from. Hmm. Import calc grid region. Um, what did I rename this to? It's now test state, right? We should technically call this test store. This is the store. The state is inside of the store, but the store has extra stuff on it. Um, test store. I can also move this stuff back down to the bottom because it doesn't need to be at the top. I didn't think that it would matter. Um, it's always good to be thorough when just testing stuff out. So this should be test store. Actually, we can just turn this back to spectator. And this is create service. Boom. Here we can go spectator.service. So I've got one last area with an error. I don't have set grid values anymore. Because that comes from here. It's fine. We'll copy it. Yeah. I don't need these hooks anymore, but we can copy that in. Um, you know what? It's probably just going to be easier if instead of trying to do that, we just run with grid. Um, there's a bunch of stuff in the grid that we're taking advantage of. Um, we can see that we're passing, everything's there, and we aren't getting the extra errors. We aren't importing the same thing twice. So that's a good one. Let's see. So we've got our rows in here. It should return the columns, right? Um, and this one's going to be interesting. Um, and it actually picked it up. Wait, why doesn't it like my fill grid? Oh, because I'm outside of the area. There we go. So this is why I like things like Copilot for writing tests, because it picked up my pattern, but it also recognized that it should be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 all across. And the next one should be 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 for 3 rows, and then 4, 5, 6 for 3 rows, and then 7, 8, 9 for 3 rows. But this should. Oh, we failed. Why did we fail? Row 6, row 8. Oh. I thought I was being clever. You can see that my columns are off and my rows are off. Um, so I wasn't as clever as I thought. So let's change things a bit. Um, so this one really, we don't need the expected rows anymore. Um, Instead, we're going to say that this should equal the grid. It'll be fine, which means we don't need this expensive function in our tests anymore. And we're fine there. Um, but the last thing we want to do is just go here and we can just go map. Um, and here we can say column. We can say columns. And then here we can say columns map column. Um, then here we can say column map. And wait, what is the type of column? So columns is a cell state array. Columns, the cell. So here we just want the cell dot value. And so we should expect this to be all ones and nines. I don't know if it's run again. Yeah, it hasn't. Did not pick that up. But still failing. Columns is a cell state array. Value is a cell state dot. No. Cell is a cell state value. Why is that mapping out that way? Oh, yeah, it's we actually want to do this for everything. So it's not the one failing that I thought it was. It was this one that I'm expecting to equal grid. Um, let's take this code here. And we'll just say function get grid values. And here is a grid that is a cell state at that. It's going to return a cell value that. Map row dot value. Row dot map. Yep, there we go. And there's that. And now we need to import cell state. Or undefined. That will work. And now we should be able to say that, hey, if we get the grid values of that, and then here we just want to say we're just going to get the grid values